Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm returning to talk about a new game that's been announced today, actually. I know I just posted my video yesterday discussing Paradox Interactive's financial results for 2016, and a large portion of that video was actually me talking about the challenges that Paradox will face in order to repeat their successes of 2016. If you look back at their financials, 2015 was a breakout year for them. 2016 was even better, substantially better. And I was posing the question, how does a company maintain the amount of success that they've been having for the last 3 years now, continually growing at dramatic rates? And I think they may have answered some of those questions that I had just a day after I posted that video. Obviously, their announcement has nothing to do with my video, but yesterday they announced that Paradox is going to be partnering with Eugen Systems. And if you're not familiar with Eugen Systems, they make the Wargame series. So Wargame European Escalation, Wargame Airland Battle, Wargame Red Dragon, which are these kind of fast-paced real-time strategy games that basically try to, in my view, bridge the gap between kind of the hardcore Graviteam or combat mission games and just the really simplistic old school sort of RTS type games. And it's sort of a hybrid in there. It's almost like a detailed and authentic feeling game that takes place over a much more fast-paced environment with realistic terrain effects, although the battles are very, very rapid. High-fidelity graphics, meticulously researched units, hundreds and hundreds of units from many different countries in these games. Their games recently have focused on the Cold War or hypothetical conflicts in China, but the games that came before the Wargame series, also made by Eugen Systems, was called R.U.S E, which was a major game published. It was on consoles, it was on PC, and it was a World War II RTS. That kind of led into the Wargame series, as I believe they kind of split off from their publisher and went on their own, and then developed the Wargame series. Well, Paradox and Eugen are teaming up to develop a brand new game called Steel Division Normandy 44. And by the looks of it on these screenshots, it looks to be like a new R.U.S E, like a R.U.S E 2.0, or maybe like a further development down the Wargame line, which are all very similar games and have made a lot of progress. But it's really exciting to see Paradox and Eugen pairing up for this. I haven't shown a lot of Wargame footage on my channel, or R.U.S E for that matter. I actually have R.U.S E on the PlayStation 3, and I enjoyed the hell out of that game. It's a really innovative RTS that kind of makes you think about deception in a way that most RTSs don't. And it's more authentic and historical feeling than the typical RTS game. Unit traits, variables matter. It's not just a click fest. Using terrain and things like that matter. And the same goes for the Wargame series. I was a big fan of Airland Battle, and they kind of have these, at least in the Wargame series, they have these semi-dynamic campaigns where you fight out on the map with your army, and you've got a certain number of troops or different types of units that you can deploy, and your forces can get attrited over time, and you can get reinforcements and whatnot. But it's sort of this series of linked battles on this kind of almost like medieval 2 kind of map, like hex maps that then lead into battles. The strategic element always seemed a little bit wanting, but the battles were always a lot of fun. And I think that's why I'm really excited that Paradox and Eugen are teaming up, because, and I'm showing you screenshots that they've released for the game thus far, but one of the things that I think is really interesting is Paradox is known as this sort of grand strategy game studio that really focus on the kind of at the highest level an operational map, but generally more of a strategy map. This game seems to be trying to expand upon the inter-battle relationships that exist in the Wargame universe. So they've said that they're going to be using more than 400 historically accurate units, so I have no doubt that there will be these really high-fidelity units that feel real, feel authentic. It's going to take place in the Normandy campaign, it seems like, based on the name. They're going to still have the real-world tactics and battles, but they're going to be adding a new phase where battles take place over 3 phases, which is kind of paradoxy, right? Like you think of their battles in like Crusader Kings seem to take place over some phases, but you don't really see it. You're not really ingrained in it. So I imagine there will be some sort of like introductory phase where meeting units kind of engage, scout, feel the enemy out. Then you'll have the main forces deploy and engage, and then you'll have some sort of pursuit or counterattack phase of some sort. And it talks about how different units get unlocked throughout those different phases based on, how things would happen in reality. When a unit would engage with an enemy, it's not going to show up on the field, as in many games, as this death stack that's all ready to go. You're not going to have 300 tanks with, 30 mechanized. I can't even speak. You're not going to have 300 tanks show up with 1,500 APCs all in battle formation and just storm the enemy. No, you're going to have a scouting force that's going to show up first, with some light units to kind of probe out the enemy. Then the main body will arrive. They'll deploy into formation. They'll launch their attack. And then if the enemy's a counterpuncher, they may absorb the attack and then try and rally and launch a counterattack. So there's different units, there's different types of styles of fighting that would occur over the course of a real battle, and it seems like they're trying to bring some of that out in an emphasis, so you don't just show up with your entire army at the start of every battle perfectly formatted to launch a successful attack. Additionally, there appears to be some level of strategy. I mentioned earlier it felt like maybe they were trying to bring some paradoxy kind of stuff in, but it kind of talks about how there will be a strategic element where, engaging forces to pin your enemy in place, so then you can have other forces maneuver around their flank or maybe launch a frontal assault. It seems like there's going to be a series of linked battles on this strategic map that will all play with each other so that certain forces get committed, you pin the enemy in place, then that allows you to maneuver and hit them the way you want, or keep the enemy off guard. Furthermore, maybe as the enemy, you've got like a screening force up, you delay him with a defensive, and that allows you to conserve a portion of your force for a counter stroke. It seems like there's going to be some level of operational tactics or strategy involved in the game, and I'm really excited to see that. I always felt like the Wargame series, despite having the strategic map, kind of left a little bit to be desired in terms of making you really play strategically, and it seems like they may be trying to address that. So that's really kind of interesting. I'm still kind of piecing together my thoughts. I've enjoyed the Wargame series, although I haven't covered it a ton on my channel, but what I can say is, to me, it feels like Paradox and Eugen Systems are sort of an ideal pairing. Eugen Systems, to my knowledge, doesn't really work with a publisher on their existing Wargame battles. They're kind of self-published, whereas obviously Paradox is the publisher here. So Eugen Systems is developing the game. I do hope that Paradox is lending some assistance there, maybe on the strategic side of things to have this enhanced strategic or operational map. But it seems to me like there's an interesting relationship here, and that Eugen Systems isn't a AAA studio by any means, but they do develop a fairly popular RTS series that seems to have done somewhat well for them. And while R.U.S.E was a major, I can't remember if it was Ubisoft that published R.U.S.E, was a major publisher on a major release, that didn't seem to play out all that well. I almost feel like Paradox's strategy first mantra, their strategy focus, makes them a better fit for a company like Eugen, which doesn't really do a traditional RTS. It's kind of a mix between a real-time tactical and a real-time strategy game. It's kind of a mix between the ultra-hardcore war games like Combat Mission or Graviteam and some of the more casual games of like the 90s or just like base building RTSs. So it's almost like that hybrid, and it's kind of the direction that Paradox has kind of been going with some of their grand strategy games, where they're simplifying some things that used to be kind of ultra just opaque and sort of groggy, while at the same time trying to bring their production values up to look more like a AAA type developer. So Eugen kind of has that AAA type look in terms of the graphics and the quality of their gameplay, and Paradox has that right niche, that right fit for the publisher to really be giving them the support that they need, a strategy first publisher. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. I'm excited. We don't have a lot to go on thus far. It's still a little bit early, but I just thought I would share these, this information with you guys. I'll throw some links into the press releases and into the page where you can go and find out more. But thus far, I'm excited. Again, tempering expectations with the fact that this is the very first thing we've seen, and who knows what we're going to end up getting. But they did say it's coming out this year. The screenshots make it look like they're, somewhat well into development, I imagine. And I think this is an interesting way for Paradox to meet some of those questions on how they're going to repeat their successes. They're not the developer, but again, they're publishing this, so they do get a cut. Additionally, and I'll throw this on as sort of an addendum at the end, the last 2 days have been big days for Paradox. I mentioned today that they announced that or actually, I guess you're watching this tomorrow, so yesterday, they announced their partnership with Eugen Systems. But the day before, so that was Tuesday, Monday they announced, or that was Wednesday, Tuesday they announced, I believe it was, that they're going to be partnering with Twitch to sell their games directly to viewers in Twitch. I don't know if that means they sell a Steam key, you can buy a Steam key. I don't know if that means they buy directly through Twitch, and Twitch has some mechanism to deliver the game to the customer, but somehow Paradox is partnering with Twitch to sell games directly to customers through Twitch. And that's a really innovative idea, really something they haven't done before, something I haven't seen anyone do before, and it makes sense. You've got streamers that are streaming your games, you've got hundreds of people watching, and if you want to sell that game to them, the streamer's doing the selling. They're showing the game, they're talking about the game, they're playing the game, but then if you want to buy the game, you've got to leave Twitch, go somewhere else, Steam in most cases, and purchase there. And anyone, who's familiar with kind of the buying patterns of customers say, sure, some people are going to do that, but you're also going to lose a lot of people who aren't just going to bother. If you have it right there in front of them, they can just click and buy it right there while they're watching, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate. So it's almost natural. You're watching this game, maybe Twitch throws in like a one-click buy right in there on the screen, and you can buy the game right there while you're watching it. It's a really interesting idea. I don't know if it's a good idea. I think Steam has such a huge stranglehold on the market right now that anyone trying to really challenge them is taking a big risk. But it's enjoyable to see Paradox kind of leading the way and doing things a little bit differently, right? Because they're doing things a little bit differently already in just really being a strategy-first gaming company, whereas, there are very few strategy-centric publishers out there, and now they're apparently successful and confident enough that they're going to partner with the leading streaming platform in Twitch and experiment with this new idea. And it's exciting to see the strategy gaming industry be at the forefront of this kind of innovation and development. I also think it's really interesting because they're going to be giving a percentage of all sales to the streamer. So if you're streaming a Paradox game and someone buys that game while they're watching your stream, then you get a cut of that sale, which is, I think, a really interesting idea. Streamers and YouTubers and people who share their gaming experiences, there's no doubt they drive sales to some extent. The fact that they're showing the product off, the fact that they're talking about the product, in many cases, the big guys, maybe not the small guys like myself, really help drive consumers' buying behavior. So if you're a outlet where people can watch these games and end up purchasing them, it makes sense to some extent reward that streamer for showing the game off and playing the game. The other nice thing is it does remove a little bit of the, well, maybe not actually, now that I think about it. It could pose some concerns. Are people going to be as honest and upfront about games if they're getting paid to sell it, right? So there's a little bit of a concern there, but we'll see how that plays out. I also think it's interesting because Twitch is now owned by Amazon, I believe. So Amazon has their whole one-click buying. That's why I mentioned that earlier. And Amazon also plays in the video game space where they sell games directly to customers through Amazon. But obviously trying to compete with Steam there, they're at a big disadvantage. So this is a way that they can leverage their Amazon, the heft of Amazon, maybe leverage some of that Amazon technology in the back end around how one-click buying works. And, they're already merging Amazon Prime in with Twitch. So now if you've got people's Amazon accounts linked up to Twitch, you've got this game people are watching, you allow them to buy the game on the screen, it allows Amazon to really kind of come into the gaming market in a way that they haven't really been for digital games yet. So it's an interesting way to approach it. It's exciting to see Paradox at the forefront of innovation and technology, and I really feel like my last 2 videos have just been me praising Paradox, which is funny because I don't typically play a ton of Paradox games on my channel. But I do think it's interesting, it's exciting, and I wonder if we'll see more developers adopt this Twitch approach, and if we'll see more competition with Steam, because I know a lot of people love Steam. I know a lot of people only buy their games through Steam, but you're really putting your industry in a difficult and challenging place if people only have one outlet to buy those games. So in my view, any competition is good. GOG is out there, but really Steam has such a stranglehold on the marketplace. Amazon is a company that could compete with Steam. A lot of it probably will depend on pricing and sales and things like that, and we'll see how that all plays out. But it's another really interesting and really exciting development. So I feel like this was a little bit more of me being, oh, rah, rah, everything is great. But these are just some really exciting developments in my opinion, and it'll be interesting to see how they play out. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts below, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.